Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 44 of Sir Kevin Says. Today we have Danny Duncan. He is a recording engineer, producer, and 8-time Grammy Award winner. Danny, how you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm blessed to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
Thank you for coming, man. You come from quite a distance. I know you're not here just for the show, but I appreciate the fact that you are here.
Oh, yeah.
From Tennessee, correct?
I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, but I'm in LA
quite often.
Half the time, I feel like. So
how's it been through the whole pandemic? Have you been traveling often?
I have to say I haven't changed much.
That's good.
At all. I have been still traveling, even a little bit out of the country, believe it or not.
Wow.
International stuff has that's been a little more difficult. Slowing down. But within the country, I've been very, very blessed, honestly. Half of what I do outside of the studio is live recording capture.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of all this, I thought, well, that's going to go away completely. That's just gone. And I was like, so I'm going to try to focus more on the studio and have more time for that. I only had one thing that actually canceled through that.
Okay.
They found different ways of doing it. A lot of people decided to do it without an audience, or they
got it
and just found ways around it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Even that, it continued in its own way.
Man, that's incredible. That's awesome.
I'm thankful.
How much has COVID affected recording for you? I mean, has it altered anything besides having to wear a mask inside the studio?
Not really. I found myself getting a lot of things sent to me that had been recorded, and like, hey, can you like put some love on this, or can you mix this? A lot of things, just mix work. But it hasn't been too different.
Yeah, that's good
for me. It really hasn't. So
you've actually been a huge part of my life when it comes to my career as a musician. I play drums, and so. The thing is that when I grew up in church, and I remember when I was very young, I was about maybe 12, 13 years old. I had the music director at my small Pentecostal church hand me an album, and it was an Israel album, right? I think it was the Again I Say Rejoice album with Chris Coleman on it.
Okay.
And he started handing me these albums, and I was like, man, who is Israel? Who is Fred Hammond? Who is Marvin Sapp? You've worked with all of these legends.
I have, and they are certainly legends. I mean, they are. I couldn't say enough about them.
Yes,
I'm blessed to get to be a part of any project.
Yeah,
but with these guys, I mean, they are real musicians, and they have a heart for what they're doing.
Definitely.
So, and I love that.
Yeah,
I love being a part of that.
So talk to us a little bit about your upbringing. How did you get into the audio world, into the music world? I'd say, where were you born? Let's start there.
All right. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
And, I come from more of a musical background.
Mm-hmm.
I was a player first.
Yeah.
And I played keys, and I'll give you the shorter story, but I when I went to college, I was a music major, studied composition, arranging. So I came definitely from a musical standpoint.
Yeah.
I never even thought about being in the studio and creating like that until, I got into the studio with some guys to like record a demo of some horrible songs that this band I was with came up with.
Yeah.
But they weren't horrible songs. It was just like, I hope no one hears them. So I fell in love with the process, and I watched and it's like, man, all of this coming together, the creativity.
Yeah.
In this space, and you can manipulate the sounds.
Mm-hmm.
That was blowing my mind. Like, we can take the time to like actually use sounds to create a feeling, and that was just mind blowing to me, and that completely changed my life. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to be in the studio.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm after college. I moved to Nashville. But even then, I playing keys for a couple of artists, and things like that. And I knew I wanted to be in the studio, but studio work, especially then, it was hard to come by, just because a lot of producers tend to use the same players, and I get that now. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's and it's everybody wanted that gig. You go to the studio, you create all day, and 6 o'clock you go home. You're home, and you don't have to travel, and it's So I thought, well, I'm going to just get my feet wet and find my way around here in Nashville, playing and meet people.
Yeah.
And shortly after I was there, one of the people I was playing with said, "Hey, we're going to go in the studio and make a record. Would you want to do that with us?" I'm like, "That's what I've been wanting to do all along." And so I did. And then they asked me to go and assist them on the mix with it. And a lot of this was me figuring out what even this means, because I didn't come from an engineering background.
Okay.
I didn't come from a technical background. I never went to an engineering school. I never took classes like that. So it was really all just finding out, what does this stuff do?
Exactly.
But I was so excited about it. And I would spend the night in the studio. And I became good friends with a studio owner there. They let me just spend the night in the studio, like days on end. And I would just go in there, and I would call up friends of mine. How do I patch a thing into the console? And I would go to every piece of gear in there and just look at the knobs, and I'd figure out what it does. I would just listen. It was like, okay, so that's what that does. I don't know what it's called, but that's what that does.
Yeah.
And that's how I figured it out.
Man.
Was just immersed myself.
Yeah.
In that. I'm dating myself terribly here, but I don't care. There was no extensive information on the internet.
Yeah.
At that
no
time.
YouTube. None of that. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. It was manuals, if the studio could find a manual.
Wow.
Asking friends of mine, or turning a knob and just see what it did.
Man.
So that's where that side of it came from.
That's insane. I'm obviously a little younger than you, so everything that I want to learn or I'm trying to learn, even podcasting, search up on Google or YouTube, and it's everything's the school. They call it the school of YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing.
I go to that school often.
How long have you actually been doing this for?
Since 1990.
1990. I was born 91.
Yeah.
So, man.
Yeah, I was 3. I'm kidding. I wasn't 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is pretty insane, but this is just some of the people that Danny has worked with. I had to write this down because your discography is over 500 albums, I think, or something like that you've collaborated or have had a part in.
It's probably got to be there. Just live albums alone, I think we've done 540 something just live recordings.
Oh my goodness.
Studio stuff. So
Stevie Wonder, Michael McDonald, Bruce Springsteen, Kirk Whalum, Billy Ray Cyrus. That's some in the secular world. Kim as well. I think that was recently. Or
that was recently.
Okay.
Yeah, just last year.
In the gospel world, Israel New Breed, Andre Crouch, Byron Cage, Chris Tomlin, Natalie Grant, Freddie Rodriguez, Ricardo Rodriguez, Marvin Sapp. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on. You've worked with everybody. That is amazing. That is amazing. When it comes to the recording world, what is your favorite part?
What part of recording? Ooh, that's tough because I love it all. I'll tell you, it's a 2-part answer.
Okay.
I love being in the studio on tracking dates with all the musicians and feeling all of the pieces come together.
Yeah.
That's just something that it doesn't happen that much anymore in a lot of genres of music. But having a live band in the studio, there's just nothing like it. It's something that you can't just get necessarily with samples or your new sample pack. And I mean, all of that is great and has its place, but there's something about 4 or 5 musicians in the studio feeling this piece of music and what it's saying at the same time, and then they're feeding off of each other, and the music comes to life. It breathes, and I love that part of it. I love that creative thing just seeing that happen and feeling the song come to life is so exciting to me. The other thing I really love doing is I love cutting vocals. I love
Oh, nice.
cutting, especially lead vocals, and like spending time with a singer and just really honing in on a vocal and making the vocal communicate.
Yeah. You've done this internationally as well. How do those opportunities come about?
I guess it's all word of mouth. Yeah, I trying to think of how many countries we've recorded in. All over the place though.
You went to London with Israel, right? For the Love God, Love People album.
Right. I was at Abbey Road.
Man, how was that?
Fantastic. That was actually the second project I had done at Abbey Road. And it never changes. Like I spend an entire first day every time just looking around, taking in just where I am, and, and then it's like, okay, we got to get to work and like make this, another great project that comes out of here. But I work in the UK quite a bit.
Okay.
So I think it's just word of mouth. I think, or I have people that will contact me through social media, and once you're connected with one artist in a place,
right?
It's you meet other people and other artists and other musicians that are there, and so I really love that part of it because I love to travel.
Yeah,
and so
that's amazing.
Yeah,
you worked on the Timeless Christmas album with Israel.
Yeah,
that is my all-time favorite gospel Christmas album.
I guess mine as well.
Man, it's the drums. It's Will Kennedy, correct? I think it's.
We had a couple different people on that. Dan Needham played a lot of the drums on that as well.
I have this weird rule where I don't listen to Christmas music until the month of December at 12 a.m.
Yes,
that's when I start listening.
Okay,
and I actually pop in that album. That's the first album I started. Then I go to Diana Krall or Donny Hathaway, things like that. But that's the first album I pop in.
Wow. So good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Making that as well.
The Grammys that you've won, what albums were they for?
Let's see. 5 were with Israel.
Okay.
There was now I'm on the spot. I got to think of what. Stephen Curtis Chapman, and I think a couple with CeCe Winans.
CeCe Winans.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then you've also worked with her brother, Marvin Winans.
I have, yeah.
How's that, the experience with the Winan family?
I love that entire family. And Marvin, I'm working on something with him right now, in fact. But he is, man, absolutely a beautiful. I love this guy.
Yeah.
He's good. He came to my house one time. We were supposed to cut vocals. And he showed up at my house 3 hours early, which shocked me. And he said, "Hey, where's your wife?" I was like, well, get in the car. We're going to go to the store and I'm cooking dinner for you tonight.
Oh, wow.
And so he just cooked dinner for us. I'll just never forget that. I was like, I want a camera or something here. It's like this moment is like Marvin Winans. I love that entire family. And Marvin, I'm working on something with him right now, in fact, but he is, man, absolutely a beautiful. I love this guy.
Yeah.
He's good. He came to my house one time. We were supposed to cut vocals, and he showed up at my house 3 hours early, which shocked me. And he said, "Hey, where's your wife?" I was like, well, get in the car. We're going to go to the store and I'm cooking dinner for you tonight.
Oh, wow.
And so he just cooked dinner for us. I'll just never forget that. I was like, I want a camera or something here. It's like this moment is like Marvin Winans.
That's amazing.
Came and cooked dinner and it was spectacular.
And then you went to go track afterward, or was it during the day? Or
I don't know. We got much done that day.
Spend most of the time eating.
Oh, as great as he is a singer, he's just as great at cooking.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
That's amazing. Well, what instances would you say catapulted your career that you were really doing this at a professional level, working with these artists? I mean, these are just maybe 10, 15 people that I mentioned out of the array of artists you've worked with.
There's a couple that I can think of. One of the biggest was when I met a guy named Tommy Sims.
Oh man!
So at the time, like I said, I was still just playing and doing a lot of keyboard programming, drum programming, and I wasn't engineering much. I really wasn't engineering at all at that point.
Yeah.
But Tommy approached me and said, "Hey, I heard some things that you have done on a few of these other projects. Would you come along with me? And we've got all of these projects lined up." And he showed me all of this stuff. I was like, "Wow, this is phenomenal!" And I knew who Tommy Sims. I knew who he was already, and I was just completely honored that he wanted to even meet with me.
Yeah.
So I said, it was over a weekend, and I was like, let me think about this. Let me pray about this. Because I was so afraid that, I told you the story a moment ago about how I started as a player and then I ended up going to the studio, and I made it sound like it happened within a week, and it wasn't like that. No. So I was so afraid that if I took all this work, everything would be working with Tommy. Not that that's a bad thing, but I felt like I was going to be abandoning some of the other clients that I had spent time building up.
Sure.
So I told him, let me pray about this over the weekend, and I'll let you know. So he called me every day. Hey, have you made a decision yet? Which is very unlike Tommy. He's very, I don't know if you ever met him, but he's very soft-spoken and brilliant, but a man of few words sometimes, So I kind of thought about it the whole weekend and prayed about it and talked to people about it, and I pretty much decided I was going to tell him I'm so honored, but I just, I've built all of this up, and I just don't want to let go of that.
Yeah.
And so Monday morning came around, and it was early, like 7 a.m. He called me. But this time he didn't say, hey, what did you decide? He was like, hey, all right, let's get going. I have a studio booked. I'm going to be tracking in the other room, but I booked the B room for you. Bring all your stuff set up. We got this thing we're going to start with. There was no... And the whole time I was trying to find a little break in the conversation I had rehearsed my whole thing about I let him finish. Okay. And so great. See you there in by 9. And in this split second, I felt God was speaking to me and said, stop trying to hold on to something you think that you built.
Wow.
And just say yes and show up.
Man.
So I said, great, I'll see you at 9. I'm like, what did I just do? I had this whole thing rehearsed. And so went to the studio and we worked on this little track. And I say little track, it was a very, very simple little drum groove. It was a keyboard pad. There was nothing to it. And Tommy was working in the other room, and he would come in occasionally and listen to what I'd done. And then he would start speaking into it. It's like, oh no, it needs to feel lonely. I need to feel like I'm lonely and longing for something. And it's first time that I had really heard somebody start describing music as an emotion and a feeling, and I have to
embrace it
out of a simple kick drum sound. I'm supposed to feel loneliness, and and all of this emotion out of the music. And it was brilliant. I didn't understand it at first, but I was getting a really quick lesson. And we worked on this little track for the entire week. And at the end of the week, it was he said, yeah, all right, I think we have it there. Now we have it. Now this is good. And he sang he said, let me get a mic and let me sing a little background vocal part on it, which I thought, and I had never heard a lyric. I'd never heard anything about this, only what he described. And got a mic set up, and he sang these little la 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 things that still didn't make much sense to me. I'm like, that's it. That's all I'm going to get. So he said, all right, we may be booking a trip to LA. We got to cut some vocals on this. And I'm like, what is this thing? Who is this for? So it was for Bruce Springsteen, and it was the title track for the movie Philadelphia. The song was Streets of Philadelphia. Was the movie, and that's like Tommy in the background doing these little la 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 things, and so the song did really well, and it was a big thing for me, not just because of a Springsteen thing, a movie thing, or Tommy thing, but it was a beginning of a relationship with Tommy Sims that we worked together almost every single day for the next 13 or 14 years.
Wow.
And it was like just thankful to be like tapping into his brain of definitely. Like how music communicates and how we have to like feel this. I mean, he's the master of it.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was just in school every single day. and Tommy actually was the one that encouraged me to start recording our stuff. Like we would do a lot of programming at the time, and a lot of times he just wasn't happy with the way it sounded after it was put on tape, and we were on tape then.
Wow.
And that's when I started locking myself in the studio going, well, let me see how I can put it on tape and make it communicate the way it did before, like when we were just listening off of our samplers and things like that. And I would stay there overnight and reprint some of these, and he'd come in and was like, that's it. That's what we're, and so, and that was, we started doing sessions with live players and like, great, who's doing it? He's like, you're going to cut it. I'm like, no, I don't. I just found out how to get something on tape. I'm not. He's like, no, you'll be fine. Yeah, no, go for it. Figure it out.
Thrown in the fire.
And so I'm really thankful for him in so many ways.
Yeah.
But that was a big turning point for me. Him, and then just I said yes. Yeah. The opportunity was there, and I simply said yes.
Yeah.
I don't think I deserved it. I don't, I just think sometimes, throughout life, there's just these doors that are there, and it's just do I say yes and like just go with it and,
and see what happens kind of deal?
Or do I play it safe?
Yeah. So, you were just mentioning how you were praying about the opportunity that Tommy had presented to you. How important has faith been a part of your journey? You've been doing this for over 30 years now.
Yeah.
How important has that been to you?
Well, I grew up in church. Thankful to come from Christian mom and dad, and we grew up in church, and I did a lot with the music program in church. And so that was the basis for everything I knew musically.
Yeah.
That's where I started. So, music can communicate so much, but like there's nothing better to communicate than the gospel.
Yeah.
Through music, and it's really powerful.
Yeah.
So,
how did you get connected with Israel?
Let's see. The first project I recorded with Israel was, wow, we got to go way back. Oh, so here's a funny story. I first met him, a guy named Chris Rodriguez, produced a project for Israel long time ago. Mm-hmm. That's where I met Israel for the first time.
Yeah.
And I had played saxophone as well. So they called me to come and play saxophone on this project. And because they'd heard something else, and they're like, that's what we're going for. I don't know the whole, I can't even remember the name of the album, but I quickly got fired on the session. I was like, my tracks ended up nowhere on it. So when I got reconnected with Israel on an album called Real, a studio project. And I was with Tommy, and Tommy said, hey, this guy named Israel called me and wants to come over, and we're going to do this project called Real. And I was like, Israel, I wonder if that's the same guy that I met a few years ago. And it was, and he walked in the door, and I don't know if you know that. That's another, probably one of my favorite Israel records is the Real album. He walked in the door, and I remember he sat down at the piano and pretty much played the entire album straight through on the piano, what he had in his head. This is how I want it to go. And I was just blown away. It's like, yeah, this is the same guy. And
that
man, so talented writer, So that's where we got really reconnected. And since the real album, and I can't remember what year that was, but I've worked with Israel on every single album since then.
That's right. That's right. The opportunities that you get, do you feel like they've come more because of your due diligence with the times that you spent at the studio every night trying to figure out the knobs, how to make this sound the way the artist wants it to sound? Do you feel like those opportunities came from that, from your diligence and staying committed to what you wanted to do?
I think partially. I still don't consider myself a very technical person. So I think some amount of that has to be there and has to be built in, but it's not something you necessarily rely on to carry you for the long haul.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, I feel like you have to like feel the music, hear the music, and it has to become a reality. Anytime I'm recording, I like to have a copy of the lyric in front of me. And so I don't think about it necessarily in a technical sense as I look at the lyric and I hear the music that's playing, and I'm like, this music has to sound like what this
is conveying is saying on paper. Got it.
Like if there is no vocal on this, or if someone hears this song and they don't speak English or whatever language they're recording in, they still have to know what this song's about, even if they only heard the music. So just interpreting that and kind of bringing out those, what the message of the song is in the sounds and in the parts. I think that's a big part of what I have like kind of dedicated, what we call recording engineer as doing. It's less of the technical side and more of a musical thing.
Yeah.
I hope I'm answering your question.
That's it's a great answer. Do you find yourself mentoring others as well in the industry?
Some, yeah. I have, especially locally, in Nashville, I've had like 5 or 6 really great people that have worked with me and done internships and things like that, and actually ended up hiring every single one of them.
Wow.
At some point.
That's great.
After the internship ended.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to do, though, if you're not there on a daily basis. It's not something that, happens once a month.
Right.
This is every day. So it's really difficult to do from a distance.
Yeah. In your own words, how would you describe success in music, or at least particularly in audio engineering?
I would say it's like fulfilling the dream and the heart of what the artist has imagined. When they walk in with a song, it's not about this needs to sound like something that Danny Duncan recorded. My name does not count there. It never should count. It should never sound like me. If it does, then I have failed. It has to sound like who the artist is, and it has to sound like what they are trying to say. And it has to be unique to them. You put in different artists. It's, Israel has a sound.
Right.
Marvin Sapp has a sound.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a sonic signature that is part of their heart, what they're saying. I think the success is realizing that and going, all right, we've accomplished that.
Yeah.
It's what was in the heart of the artist. It was on what was on their heart of a William McDowell when he called and said, "Hey, I have something we got to record. I know we just put out that other thing, but it has to be recorded now, and I have something I have to say."
Wow.
He feels passionately about that. So I think the success is making that say what he wanted to say and being in touch with the heart of the artist and making that sonically be exactly what they wanted to communicate.
Yeah, and envisioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is actually a question from Chad, and I want to ask you because it's very interesting. You told me about this earlier. Out of the 500 live albums that you said that you recorded, how much of it is live?
Okay. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Because a lot of times people think that we just go in and replace everything in the studio afterwards. Out of 500, I'm going to say a majority of it.
Okay.
300 of those is less than 20 or 30% overdubs and fixes. There's always some. There's been one I can recall. Matter of fact, it's the Andre Crouch.
Okay.
We did one called Live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
There were no fixes on that. There were no overdubs on that. That happened live.
Wow.
Every single thing that was on there. And it's some really incredibly complicated stuff. But all of that happened live. And there was absolutely nothing done on that. But I try really hard to, when I'm recording something, I want it to sound like what it's going to sound like in the end when it's being recorded. I'm not so much let's just record this and let's fix this in the mix later and make it sound like I feel like when you're recording something, it has to capture that same thing so that we know that we can get to that later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want it to sound as close to the finished project when we're recording it as possible. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. I mean, there's always some degree of it, but it's not like go in the studio and let's replace everything. And
yeah.
It's very rarely that.
In the case where you do have to fix stuff, you're on your own for this, or does the artist come or the musicians come again and re-record?
It's always different. It really depends on the situation. It's always different. Yeah. Sometimes it's just me sitting there fixing things, and sometimes we'll find things after the fact, and we'll on live projects, as soon as we are done, I like to bring anybody in, like bass. I mean, you're never going to have, or rarely going to have, multiple passes or stacks of a bass part. It's a single. So I like to have bass come in immediately, and I've made some notes. They will make notes of, I got to get the intro of that one song, and we'll do that immediately, like right as soon as the recording is done.
Got it.
And bass is done.
Yeah.
And we listen to everything else. Do we need another guitar? Do we need to double that guitar part? And it's usually stuff like that. It's not a completely different change of direction.
Right. What makes a good album according to you?
An album, which is not many people do that anymore, do they? I think it's a complete thought. I like to have an album. I still like to listen to an album. I like to listen to the first track and listen all the way through it. And I want to hear like a thought or something that progresses through that. And it's all centered around the same thing.
So like a story being told?
Yeah. At least a perspective of a story being told throughout. It doesn't feel like just a bunch of really great songs randomly placed together, and it's all over the place.
Yeah.
While that can certainly work, I do like an album that, to me, is what I call, I guess, a complete thought, and a progression, I guess.
That's good. Yeah. Do you feel that your approach to audio engineering has changed at all in the last couple of years?
It's had to change because technology's changed and the way we make music has changed. I mean, in the last year, people are sending files around a lot to each other. So, and throughout the years, just with the technology and budgets, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into this. You're constantly evolving and finding a way to create.
Yeah.
And I think you have to evolve, or you will be left behind trying to figure out what happened. So yeah, I think it has changed in a lot of ways, but I think it's been, I think mostly it's been for the good, actually.
Yeah.
Not just engineering and not just mixing and creating and producing, but as far as artists themselves. It's easy to hop into the studio and let's create some tracks, and it's it's a lot easier than it was at one time, and it's a lot less expensive. And because of that, I think we have gotten to know and appreciate a lot of artists that wouldn't have had a chance 20 years ago, when you relied on a record company or someone to come in and put down a minimum of $50,000.
Wow. Yeah.
We've had the ability to hear people that only had few $100 sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Anytime that people can create and express what's in their heart, I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah. Where do you see the future of the audio world going?
That's a two-part thing. Where music is going, and I guess specifically music delivery has changed so much.
With streaming coming along.
What does it even mean to release a new project now? And I'm not sure I even know. I mean, there's lots of ways of doing that.
Yeah.
It's social media, the way it's marketed on social media. A lot of times it's not even that at all. It's attached to a product or something else that's on social media, or a guy skateboarding down a hill drinking a Gatorade, or you know what I'm saying. So it's, who knows? Like, so there's so many ways that that's happening now, and that's changing faster than I can ever keep up with it. For the recording side of it, I think we have to get creative about how we do it, but I don't think it changes much, because no matter how the music is delivered, if you are an artist, you still have to record music. And you still have to have something that, people can put their hands on and put their ears on, and communicate. So, we're still recording, even though that's, we've changed the way we do it, and, made it easier and things like that.
So next, I'd say 15, 20 years, you think it'll be close to the same?
I have no way of, I couldn't have predicted the last 15 years, so I'm not about to, try to predict 15 years from now. I hope that I still just get to be a part of this, and I do. I feel like every single day when I go into the studio, I'm thankful that I even just get to be here.
Yeah, that's good. Do you have any other passions besides music and recording?
I love saltwater fishing.
Oh.
Love saltwater fishing. So if anybody wants to do a project and they're into saltwater fishing, we can work out a really good deal.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like it's therapy.
Okay.
I don't even care if we catch anything. Just being out on a boat and you can't see land anymore.
Man, that's therapeutic.
It's therapeutic.
Yeah.
Everything just like.
Do you cook at all?
A little. I like to.
Because some people
when
tell
I have
me,
time,
yeah.
I do. I do like to cook.
Some people tell me it's very therapeutic when they cook. I don't see the therapy behind it, but I mean,
I like to eat.
Yeah.
I really like that.
What's some of your favorite food?
Oh, I'm a foodie.
Okay.
I'll tell you that.
What do they call it? Foodie aficionado? Is that what it is?
I love good restaurants,
Yes.
good food, and have several friends. Like we're in different cities. Hey, what's the place where should I eat?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in Atlanta. Where should I go? We have our list.
Yeah.
So I can tell you the good restaurants if you need something. But I like all kinds of food. There's.
That's right. You're not a picky eater. You mentioned that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I can go to what does the chef think is the best? Have him fix whatever that is and surprise me.
Yeah. That's
good.
good.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. In terms of what you feel you bring to the table, what would you say value means to you? Like, I'll give you the example. Some people say they value their time. Like, if they're a family man, obviously, if this project or this situation is going to take time away from my family,
right?
How much value does that provide to me in terms of what it'll do for my career, maybe my mental health?
That's the biggest one. I mean, that's what I was just about to say. It's like, it's time. My wife and I have an 11-year-old daughter, and it has been, I travel a lot.
Yeah.
And my wife has just endured and put up with it since day one. And my daughter has grown up knowing that dad leaves a lot.
Yeah.
And she's been very understanding, but it's getting harder and harder because, they don't want me to go. Sometimes I don't want to go. Like, I mean, now my daughter's like, I'm okay. I have to go to so-and-so tomorrow. She's like, oh, don't leave.
Man.
And it's just, I mean, when she says that, I want to go well, I'll call them. I can't go. I you know, but she does understand. They're both very understanding.
Yeah.
And, during the summers when she's not in school, they will go with me. They love to travel as well. So she likes to go with me. She's, taking my daughter and my wife all over the place.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I like that when they get to come as well.
Yeah, join
Yeah.
in and be a part of it.
Yeah.
How do you overcome difficult moments? What are some of the things that you've done in your career that have helped you?
I think it's just staying focused on the why of what I'm doing, and I, because there are certainly times that it's frustrating. There are times you want to go. I don't know where to go with this, and you give up. You're just like, okay, let's walk out of the studio. Let's get, and that's happened.
Yeah.
We've done that. On projects where we're just everyone's frustrated. It's like we all walk away for a moment. And I think is a healthy thing, and then we all come back clear heads, and I think focusing on the why, not necessarily the what that we are doing, but why we're doing this. Something that I feel like I've been entrusted with whatever skills that I am bringing to the table, and I say it that way because people a lot of times will. I communicate a lot try to at least with people directly on social media.
Yeah.
And they'll ask me, hey, what's your secret for getting or what's your secret for a great vocal sound? And I always start by saying, first of all, I have no secrets. I will tell you everything I know. I will. You can come and watch. I have open door. You are welcome to watch, and I will tell you everything. Whatever knowledge I have, it doesn't belong to me, and I've been entrusted with it.
That's good.
So I think just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, that's good. As far as live versus studio challenges,
it's a trade-off. So live usually presents a few more challenges because a lot of times you're on location somewhere. And if that location is not Los Angeles, sometimes you have, or Nashville, or New York, or London, or something, and you're without something. It's like, wow, we didn't see that coming. We got to work around that. So, just logistically, sometimes with that, it presents some challenges. The good thing, though, about live, is there has been so much prep ahead of time on doing a live project. Some people might see live projects and go, they showed up that day and they recorded it and mixed it the next day and we have it out. But there was a lot of prep that goes into a live recording. A lot of times we go into the studio first and record the entire thing to see how it's going to flow. Everybody knows their parts, for the most part, kind of knows at least the direction that it's going to head, if it's not exact. We've worked out a lot of the sounds and how we're capturing that well ahead of time, even before we leave to go on location, and worked out inputs and logistics of that. So it's a lot of work that goes into it, planning it. By the time we get to the actual live recording part of it, that's the very easiest part of all. That's like, at that point, you should be able to hit record and sit back and have a snack.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, once you arrive, because there are places that we've gone and they're like, no need to bring anything. We have an entire SSL console here. This has happened before. And I did show up and they did have an SSL console. That was true. They didn't tell me that it had been turned off for 2 years and they doubt that anything on it works. Or we have an entire studio, but it's 4 miles from where we're doing the recording.
Wow.
So, those things sometimes happen. We try to head that off and do site visits beforehand just to know what we're getting into. We after a few of these, you know the stuff to ask.
Yeah.
So it's usually logistical things on live. That you don't typically have in a studio. You go in the studio, and a lot of times you're still working out even what the parts are going to be when you go in the studio. And a studio comes well equipped with, it's a little bit of a different way of thinking.
Sure.
We're in a studio. You're going in and thinking through it all and capturing all of the moments to bring that into a thought of a song that's on a project. Live, that has all already happened. And now we're just concentrating on capture and the live experience of it. That's the most, it's not about a band on stage anymore. We have the live experience. The whole reason we do that is we want to hear people's reaction to it. And we want, it's the audience, and it's the collective thing, the back and forth thing, we want to hear the sound of people touching the heart of God.
That's good. Has there ever been any instances in a live recording where something went terribly wrong? And if so, how did you remedy that?
I've had a few, yeah. So I try to always have 3 systems in record at all times.
Okay.
So if one goes down, we've redundancy, like make sure everything is backed up. You have several different things. Several occasions, the power in the entire building has gone out. There's nothing you can do about that. Battery backup, you can save what you have, but you shut down, like everybody's shutting down. You can't work without power. That has absolutely happened before. I remember one recording we got, completely set up. We were ready for this really big, it was a big theater, but it was a church that owned it. And it was a really large theater. We'd set up for like 4 days working through this at least, and a big setup. It was video shoot as well.
Oh man!
Cameras, lighting. It took us 4 days to get to this point, and we had 2 days to go. And the night that we were shutting down, 2 days before, someone came through and said, "All right, you guys have to clear the stage because we have church tomorrow." Like,
oh my gosh!
Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
So. And we did. That's what we did. We had to clear the stage and quickly reset everything. Yeah, that was.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of those things.
Yeah, that sucks. That's a tough one right there. No way around it.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, make it work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Who continues to inspire you?
Man, everybody I'm around every day. These musicians, great players, my family, and it's not all just musical. It's people that have a vision, something in their heart, and they're going after it with everything within them.
Yeah.
Passionately pursuing something that is in their heart. I love that. And watching that inspires me, and that I love that. I gravitate to that. I speak with new artists sometimes on the phone, and a lot of times they approach and have very little money. But man, if I sense that, I see that, it instantly. And I'm like, what can I do? What can we do to make this happen for you? Because I want to be a part of it, and let's find a way.
Yeah.
I love that.
When they approach you for new albums, or like, hey, Danny, I want to work on this. I want to try a new song, release this single. What are the conversations that happen?
So initially, it's a lot of because they know how I work and how I work with them. The first conversation will be, hey, are you available for these dates? It's like, okay, let's do this. All right. Well, here's what I'm thinking. And they'll describe, this is what I feel like I have to say. This is what it feels like. This is what we did this on the last one, but this is where I want to progress with this one. And we talk about it like that in those terms. And what does it take to get us there to this new place on what I want to say?
Yeah.
And so it's like a, vision of what's in their heart, and there's always that initial conversation well before we start talking about
what's going on.
Great. How many guitar players are on it? Or, stuff like that.
Yeah. Recently on YouTube, there was a release about a sample pack you worked on with Calvin.
Yeah.
How was that like? The experience?
Well, first of all, Calvin is
the man.
Calvin is just bad. All right? I mean, Yeah, he's incredible.
Yes.
So this was for Tune Track, and it's the gospel library that we created for Tune Track.
Yeah.
Anytime I get to work with Calvin, that's a really good day.
Man.
You know, like I could do that every day. But they approached us about doing this gospel library, and man, I was so it was inspiring watching the way that they work on these sample packs. I have a completely new appreciation for the sample packs and the way they're created.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun creating it and doing the sounds, and we got to choose these really cool drum kits, and they allowed us to spend as much time as we wanted getting whatever sounds we wanted, and then we would capture them.
Yeah.
But a lot of work goes into it.
Sure.
I had no idea the amount of time that we would spend doing that. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of time as well. But I think we ended up with a really good library. I mean, Calvin he could play something on this table and you would
make it sound good.
So, yeah.
Yeah. He's one of my, if not my favorite gospel drummer, man. I mean, the way he articulates on the kid, I don't know. He's just one of my top favorite drummers for gospel music for sure.
As he should be.
Yeah.
Mine as well.
Yeah. Fred Hammond, Marvin Sapp, Byron Cage, Israel.
Absolutely.
The king, man. The king.
He is.
What's your biggest advice for those that are trying to get into the industry?
I would say just do it. And I don't mean it to be a very just simple, trite answer like that. I feel like a lot of times people put so many roadblocks in their way that are not even really there. And I had a conversation with someone last week about this. They really are passionate about this project that they want to do. And I've had 3 conversations with them on the phone. And so they called back again and last week and said, "Hey, I'm going to send you this other song that I want to add to it. Look, really, I feel like God really wants me to do this, but just have a listen to this, and just if you're not feeling it, tell me, and let's not do this at all." And I'm thinking, if it doesn't matter what I say, if you feel like God is telling you to do this, no matter what anybody else is telling you.
Yeah.
So that it's. I mean, there are schools you can go to for audio engineering and production, and there's music classes. But a lot of times it's just being determined to get in there and just start doing it.
Yeah.
When I do the interviews and I do some things online, occasionally it's about gear, but very rarely. Unless that's what the specific conversation is about. But I shy away from that because I think even acquiring a lot of gear that's not something you can rely on. It's gonna either you are going to feel like, well, I don't have much great gear, so therefore I can't really do what I really want to do. Take whatever you have and start creating with it.
Yeah.
Because the same thing is true. All of a sudden you could, find the winning lottery ticket and you end up with loads of great gear and you still don't know what to do with it. It doesn't mean you go buy this stuff, everything's going to sound wonderful.
Right.
All of a sudden, take what you have and start with it. If it's one song, if it is one microphone, and get what is in your heart out of and just putting it down, do whatever it takes to do that. Collaborate with people. If you go to things where you can meet other players, if you don't play but you write songs, meet players that are looking for an opportunity to do that as well. Get together and just start creating. Start doing it. Yeah. Don't wait for like some perfect opportunity to just knock on the door. Go out and create those opportunities. Just start.
Man, that's good. That's good, Danny. Where can people find you? Social media?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm laughing because the Instagram mostly I do a lot on there. The Real Danny Duncan.
Okay.
Is my name I'm laughing because it's a kind of a funny story about. I'm not that pretentious that I wouldn't call myself the real. There's a funny story, but I'll spare you the funny story behind it. That's and I think Facebook is just Danny Duncan.
Danny Duncan.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a YouTube channel?
And the Real Danny Duncan. on Instagram. YouTube, I don't have a YouTube channel.
Okay, so just Instagram and Facebook. You have a Twitter or anything like that?
I'm talking to someone about a YouTube channel right now.
Yeah.
We're talking about creative, because what I want to start doing, but I'll probably release this on Instagram as well.
Okay.
And I copied to Facebook. But we're doing a series that I think will be really cool, and it's called 30 Days to a Better Mix.
Ooh.
But it's not about it's not to mixing engineers. It is to artists and the people who are creating it and sending it to be mixed. So and it's like it's 30 simple things. Do this before you send it to be mixed. If you want your mix to be great, and every single day it's going to be one thing for a month. Like just little examples of, you want your mix engineer to spend their time mixing your song, not fixing edits and little things that you failed to do before you send it to them. Like, because a lot of times I'll get them mixes that are 150 tracks, and they will be labeled audio 1, audio 2, audio. That's 3 hours that I could be mixing your song, that I have to go through and figure out what it all is, and I got to name it all. So that's like one of our first ones is like just these are things that you can do that will 30 topics to a better mix, but it's called one day. I think we call it 30, but it's one day to a better mix. It's like things you can accomplish in one day before you send your mix off, that you'll get better results. So I think that'll be cool.
That's cool.
So we're talking about doing a YouTube channel with that. I'll probably do it on the Instagram as well. Twitter, I don't have a Twitter. No, I did at one time. Somebody hacked it and they shut it down, and I just never started it again.
Yeah. So just the YouTube channel where you're going to be discussing about creating a better mix. Is there any other upcoming projects that you can discuss that are for the public to know, or is it just all private stuff? If it is, that's fine.
Yeah, we have something that's been really great lately with Israel and New Breed. We've done the Feels Like Home.
Yeah, that's right.
We've done a couple of those. Well, Feels Like Home, we did Feels Like Christmas. So we have another one of those that's going to be coming as well.
Oh, man. That's exciting.
It's going to be...
Next couple of months, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. Feels Like Home, L.A.
Oh, that's sick.
We have... And those have been... they've been wonderful. It's just the feeling from and I think they've gravitated to seeing people worshiping together in a room and seeing people together, and it's been really, so I'm excited about that. That's one of the things that's coming really quickly.
Nice. All right. Awesome. Well, Danny Duncan, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you coming out and doing this podcast. Thank you to Chad.
Chad, thank you.
Over here. This is episode 44 with Danny Duncan, 8-time Grammy Award winner, producer, mixing engineer. Food aficionado as well.
Let's go eat.
Let's go eat. So thank you guys for watching. See you guys next week.